A very good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. Now, time and time again, we have continued to report on the plight of everyday Sri Lankans, people living in villages, farmers, fishermen, so on and so forth. Recently, we reported about the plight of the farmers in Navagampura, Ampara. Now, this is what their fields looked like back then, when these farmers had no water to nourish their fields. However, what's baffling is the fact that the Rajavava reservoir is located in very close proximity to these fields. Now, this reservoir has ample amount of water to nourish all of these fields, but the water just wasn't diverted to these fields. However, officials who took note of this had provided the water to these farmers, and this is what their fields look like today. They have ample amount of water to nourish all of their fields. Now, of course, the conduct of the state officials who took note of these issues that were highlighted on our news bulletin and addressed these issues must be commended, because farmers, as you know, are the backbone of Sri Lankan economy, and currently with the COVID-19 pandemic spreading fast across the island, people need food to survive, and it is the farmers of our country who provide these food. And when these people face such issues, state officials have to step in and provide solutions so that they can help us sustain as a country. Of course, this brought joy to the hearts of the farmers, and this is how they expressed that joy, how they put it into words.
Water has been diverted from the Rajavava. We are sharing that water now. We didn't have water for so long, but thanks to Sirasa, we now have water.
All
the farmers have received enough water for their fields. We can see that the officials are now looking into these matters. They are ready to provide us with the water that we need. We are thankful to these officials for thinking about these innocent farmers and providing us with water. Homagama Hospital assigned for treatment of COVID-19 patients. Growing calls to expand coronavirus testing capacity. GMOA warns of stern action if frontline healthcare workers are put at risk. Farmers in Palagala face a fertilizer crisis. SL Cert warns against divulging personal information online.
And a look at those stories in detail now. The total number of patients infected with COVID-19 in Sri Lanka has risen to 630. 8 patients were identified today, while 31 patients were identified yesterday. According to the Acting Chief of Defence Staff and Commander of the Sri Lanka Army, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, 21 Navy personnel were among the total number of patients identified yesterday. As of now, 250 patients who are suspected to have contracted the virus are under medical observation. A total number of 136 people have recovered from the virus so far. 7 people in Sri Lanka have died as a result of the COVID-19 virus. Let's now take a look at the prevailing situation in the country right now and what authorities and medical professionals who are on the front line of the battle against COVID-19 had to say about it.
3 people who have contracted the virus were identified today. All 3 of them were from the Valisara Navy camp. 478 people are receiving treatment in hospitals, and a considerable number of people are patients who are not showing symptoms but have the virus in their system or asymptomatics. The Homagama Base Hospital has been transformed as a hospital to treat COVID-19 from today. Earlier, the hospital was treating patients who were suspected to have contracted the virus. We have taken steps to prevent the spread of COVID-19 from Navy personnel to the people of Sri Lanka. As of now, all Navy personnel who were on leave have been summoned to their respective camps. Treating those who have been infected with the virus, quarantining and isolating others are being done in a proper manner. Not only that, their family members have also been directed to quarantine. We are hoping to bring this situation back to normalcy and cure all Navy personnel to serve the country as we have done, as always.
නැවතත් ඔවුන්ගේ සේවය මුළු රටටම ලබා දීමට.
මේ නාවික හමුදා සෙබළුන්
The reason why many Navy personnel have been infected with the virus is because they have not considered their own safety and health when carrying out their services, so that the people of this country will be safe from the virus. They are the ones who came forward when our country was battling terrorism. They are the ones who came forward and saved the people of this country whenever there is a natural disaster like a deluge, a tsunami or a landslide. What I ask from the general public is, please do not look down upon these heroes and their families, considering the immense service they have done for this nation, and let us come together and eradicate this disease from our country. I request the general public of this country yet again, do not look down upon these Navy officials and cause any inconveniences to them.
පොදු ජනතාවගෙන් ඉතා කරුණාවෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
The Public Health Inspector for Colombo Central and 12 PHIs have decided to step aside from their duties and self-quarantine for 14 days. They have informed their decision in a letter to the Chief Medical Officer of Health of the Colombo Municipal Council, Ruan Vijayamuni. The letter states, although it was requested for PCR tests to be conducted on the team of PHIs who were on duty to identify coronavirus patients at Srimad Bandaranayaka Mawatha in Colombo, since they had been on duty in the midst of a severe health risk, the tests had not been conducted. The letter addressed to the Chief Medical Officer of Health points out that the PHIs in question are currently under severe mental stress since they are unsure whether they have contracted the virus or not.
They have done a commendable service, especially in the discovery of 93 patients from Bandaranayaka Mawatha, directing around 1,400 people to quarantine, identifying people who have been infected with the virus and directing those people to quarantine centers. Based on the suspicion that they might have contracted the virus, I have asked them to be tested. Thereafter, all of them tested negative.
The GMOA issuing a press release notes that doctors and PHIs assigned to the central Colombo area have temporarily stepped aside from their duties as a result of being neglected constantly. The GMOA notes that this unfortunate situation is arising in many hospitals and PHI offices island-wide. The GMOA points out that this situation has thrown at risk medical professionals operating on the front lines and has also adversely affected their mentality. The statement further reads, the GMOA will not shy away from pointing out negligence on the part of authorities if they do not ensure those who are operating on the front lines are provided adequate protection.
The Mayor of Kurunegala has objected to 3 doctors attached to the Kurunegala Teaching Hospital lodging at a house in Vellangolavatta in Kurunegala. The house has been provided to the hospital by a member of the opposition in the council to be used for emergency purposes. This house is being used to quarantine people. I don't know if the owner of the house is aware of that. This is a densely populated area. Each house has a plot of land of about 5 and 7 perches. So maintaining a quarantine center here is unjust to the people living in this area. I made a request in my capacity as the mayor of the city from the director of the hospital to stop this.
If there is an issue here, ours and our children's lives are at risk. So we strongly object to what is being done here, especially considering the current situation in the country.
The house was handed over to us by a politician from the opposition party in the council. We do not care who the politician is. This house is not being used for quarantine purposes. This house is being used to provide accommodation to doctors attached to the hospital. The mayor has threatened the director of the hospital and he said that he will take action against me if I don't move the doctors out of the house that was given by the opposition politician. I have a circular that was issued by the Director General of Health Services and I am acting legally according to that circular. If the mayor is trying to chase away the doctors from that house for a political reason, the doctors will step down from providing services. Then who is going to be held responsible for that?
The house has been handed over voluntarily to be used by medical professionals. However, certain people have riled up the area residents by spreading false claims that this house has been converted into a quarantine facility. We know there are houses in many villages which have been classified as self-isolating houses. Even if that house in question was given to a doctor to undergo quarantine, there is no issue in it. However, certain politicians are attempting to further their political intentions by creating an issue. However, I handed that house to doctors. It should be resolved among themselves.
Meanwhile, the Government Medical Officers Forum claims that the guidelines that have been provided by certain parties to mitigate the prevailing situation are incorrect. Those who drive three-wheelers and operate small shops are destitute. The economy is collapsing. There is no victory against COVID-19 by collapsing the economy. Take Germany, for example, where the numbers are much higher than ours. They have not closed any shops or economic centers. You cannot win by imposing curfew, closing down shops and shutting down the economy. What we must learn is social distancing. If you are sick or feeling feverish, go into self-quarantine. A terror has arisen in the country around this issue at present because of the Government Medical Officers Association. COVID-19 is another disease. When we get the pox or measles at home, we are locked in the room and even food is provided through the window. That is how we protect ourselves. A similar system should be followed here as well. We cannot be fools here. In any country, there are about 5 or 10% of people who do not follow these guidelines. Now they can be dealt with sternly, maybe with a baton if required. But we should not destroy the entire country and economy for this. The GMOA responded to this accusation today. The Health Ministry comprehended what we were saying and increased testing after the 19th of April. The consequences of the 3-week delay in imposing these regulations should be borne by those who failed to heed our advice back then.
Residents of Jampeta Street in Colombo 13 claimed that they did not receive the government concessions given to low-income families affected by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Although about 90 families living in Ekasiyakawatta in Jampeta Street, Colombo 13 were deemed eligible to receive the 5,000 rupee concession from the government, a considerable number of these people had not received this. They point out that they engage in daily labor to earn a living and have been severely impacted by the COVID-19 outbreak.
The government had instructed for this concession to be given to all of them. There are children here who are living on rent, but they do not have a job now. They eat only one meal a day. This is unfair.
A group of people who had come from various parts of the country to Pattivila North in Kalaniya for work also accused authorities of failing to provide them with the 5,000 rupee concession. They point out that as the Divisional Secretariat had not conducted any classifications in the area, certain groups of people have not yet received this concession.
I am living in this boarding by paying a rent of 5,000 rupees. We need to eat and drink too. This is very unfair. One person needs 5,000 rupees.
There is no order here. People are standing here since this morning. Then they give us numbers. Then we went there and came back here. After that, they said that numbers will be given for the second batch at noon. They said that there are no numbers left afterwards. Then they asked us to stand in line.
We have to give 5,000 rupees to 3 people. That is how the circular has been issued for people living in boardings.
Meanwhile, a similar group of people living in Talwatta in Kalaniya also faced issues in collecting the 5,000 rupee allowance.
Everyone was asked to come here and there is no one here at the temple. Why aren't they giving these innocent people their money? I'm from Ambalipitia. I have no way to go home. I have no way to work. We are suffering in these boardings.
I have been selling flowers outside the Kalaniya temple for years. We haven't received anything since this disaster began. I live on rent here.
My mother and the 4 of us live here. When we go to collect the 5,000 rupees, they say they have no money.
Low-income families in the Olton estate in Samimale, Hatton, also complained that they have not received the promised relief. Our correspondent says the situation has arisen since the Samurdi officers assigned to distribute the funds has been directed to self-quarantine. Newsfirst reported yesterday on 98 persons in the Ulkatupota Grama Niladhari division in Polonnaruwa who had also been deprived of the 5,000 rupee allowance. Our correspondent reports that the Ulkatupota Samurdi office had taken steps to provide the relief today.
Right now, there is a trend in Sri Lanka where trade associations and local administrations are deciding to keep shops closed, even in areas where curfew has been lifted. Several such incidents were reported today as well.
A few shops were opened in the Kuliapitia town this morning, but they too were closed a few hours later. The Kuliapitia Urban Council and its trade association decided to close the shops. A few corona patients were discovered in the Kuliapitia town, and there is a risk in the city. Based on requests made by some shopkeepers, we decided to close all shops from today till Monday. We took this decision because Kuliapitia is a densely populated city and we need to eliminate the chances of contracting the disease. Meanwhile, the Trade Association of Galgamuwa decided to close all shops today. Healthcare authorities have said that Galgamuwa is a high-risk zone. For the safety of the merchants, consumers and staff of the city, it's been closed for the next 3 days. We engaged in security procedures given by the government and quarantined ourselves. Meanwhile, the Trade Association in Navalapitiya decided to close shops from today till Friday. The Navalapitiya Trade Association, the Navalapitiya Police Station and the SLTB Depot and the private transport service have all taken a decision unanimously. With the discovery of 2 people with coronavirus, they isolated our business places. Whilst many people are lining up to collect the 5,000 rupee allowance, farmers too are now queuing up for fertilizer. Farmers queued up at the Halkandavila Agrarian Services Centre in Palagala early this morning, seeking fertilizer for their crops. Although the farmers had been requested to arrive here last Monday, fertilizer was not provided to them. Today, whilst the farmers had begun lining up early morning, officials only arrived at the centre around 11 a.m.
There is a fertilizer problem. People are sowing the fields now and they need fertilizer. This is the 3rd day that we are coming here. When we came here on Friday, they said they were not distributing fertilizer. They are supposed to provide fertilizer on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. We are sowing the fields these days and we have no fertilizer. The fertilizer is in storage. Now they have asked us to leave through the police. But just because we leave, the problem won't be solved. They informed us that it has to be taken by the Farmers Association, who will weigh and distribute them. We did not take over the Farmers Association for this. I am a farmer too. I need the fertilizer.
This is a risk zone, and because it is a risk zone, we said the fertilizer would be given to the farmers' associations to distribute. If people flock here to collect fertilizer, it will be a problem. We will distribute on Monday and Wednesday and also on Friday. It is easy if the farmers' associations handle downstream distribution, then there won't be a problem.
Former Minister Susil Premajayantha argued that the government's ability to make financial allocations will not be interrupted under the provisions of Article 150 Part 3 of the Constitution. Pointing out that there is no need for Parliament to be reconvened, he said that the President has the power to allocate funds for a period of 3 months after the new Parliament has convened. However, addressing a letter to the President, former Minister of Finance Mangala Samaravira had dismissed this argument. He points out that Article 150 sub-article 3 of the Constitution provides for the incurring of government expenditure in the event of the dissolution of Parliament and in the context of an appropriation bill not being passed in Parliament. He adds that according to the Constitution, the President shall be authorized to issue and spend money from the consolidated fund in terms of the provisions provided in the said Constitution only until the expiry of 3 months from the date on which the new Parliament is summoned to meet. He goes on to note that, however, the due date for the new Parliament to meet has not yet been officially announced by the President. He opines that this is unconstitutional. He stresses that the President, Prime Minister, Cabinet of Ministers and the members of Parliament, as well as all public officials, including the Secretary to the Treasury, have pledged to uphold and defend the Constitution of the Republic. Any person who acts in contravention of the provisions on conviction by the Court of Appeal shall be subject to civil disability for such period not exceeding 7 years and forfeit his movable and immovable property. Samaravira therefore requests the President to summon the Parliament as soon as possible with the support of all parties represented in Parliament. He adds that failure to do so, especially at a time of a pandemic, is bound to have serious repercussions for the short and long-term economic well-being of the people, and adds that this casts doubt over the ability to make payments to state sector employees after the 30th of April. If he is saying the Constitution is being violated, then he can go to court and get an interpretation. As per our understanding of the Constitution, the President is empowered to order the utilization of funds from the Treasury at a time when an election has been called and to make provisions for a further 3 months from the date of the election. Therefore, Minister Mangala's legal argument is not appropriate in any way.
එයාට පටලැවීමක් තියෙන. එයා පටලවිලා ඉන්නව බඹගාවේ. එයා මේ
He is all muddled up and entangled. He is pulling on an old story. The President has shown his powers following the dissolution of Parliament. Mangala is speaking from the past.
තියෙනවා. මංගල ඉන්නේ ඊට පෙර අතීතේ නම් කතා කරනවා.
Meanwhile, questions on reconvening Parliament and holding the election continue to dominate the political discourse. At the meeting held with the President and Prime Minister a month and a half ago, our opposition decided to support this program. The day before yesterday, they sent a letter to the President calling for Parliament to be summoned immediately. They have set aside their divisions as of late and, as in the past, have come together to submit this. Why? Nothing will be added to the efforts to control the spread of the disease by convening Parliament. It is a dissolved Parliament. I also say responsibly that once the situation has been brought under control, the people will have the opportunity to join the program to reactivate the economy. Look at what they are saying. On one day they say they can't hold the election, then they say the opposition is afraid of an election. There are a few demagogues in there who speak foolishly. Where can they be put? In Angoda or at IDH? Or should we send them to the zoo? The people will decide.
අංගොඩටද IDH එකටද එහෙම නැත්නම් zoo එකටද දාන්න පුළුවන් කියන එක ජනතාව තීන්දුව කරන්න.
එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ
The people should assess what the intention of the United National Party is. At a time when we must all come together and decide when an election can be held, they have not even begun to consider this. An election must be held so this can be assessed. Is there an environment in the country where an election can be held? There is no indication that an election can be held on the 20th. So the government and the opposition must come together and ask the commission to make a decision on the date. We must say that this greed for political seats is disgraceful.
අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන්
The 5,000 rupee allowance scheme was politicized. The person appointed to handle this is a politician and a national organizer of a political party. He is targeting an election through this work. This won't do. We say that Parliament must be convened to discuss this. What is happening to the money that is coming in? When the utilization of these funds is handed over to a person from a political party who is not a cabinet minister or even an MP, there are certain doubts that we have. All our party leaders have made a request for Parliament to be summoned. If this is not heeded, then we must wonder whether we are headed for a dictatorship. Basil Rajapaksa has removed himself from all party activity ever since this serious duty was given to him. He does not come to this office. He is completely non-partisan in his leadership of that committee. Party leaders have addressed a letter to the president asking for parliament to be summoned. If this old parliament is convened, then about 90% of them will be strangers. About 90 people have officially left the elephant and have submitted nominations under the telephone. Those in the old parliament will be guests. As per election laws, you cannot submit nominations from one party and campaign for another. If the old parliament is summoned, it will be a violation of election law by the president. No matter what happens, it is pointless to convene the old parliament.
කොයි පැත්තෙන් ගත්තත් පරණ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව කැඳවීම වැඩක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
දැන් මේව മന്ത്രിවරුන්ගේ
The Honourable Speaker appointed Honourable Sadit Premadasa as the opposition leader based on a request made in writing by a majority of opposition MPs. We are not speaking of the opposition leadership now. We do not want any parliamentary positions. We have noted in this letter that we do not want any salaries, allowances or pensions for the extended period. Do not even think about such petty matters. We should not be thinking of who will be opposition leader and who will be the leader of the house. We should be thinking now of how we are going to safeguard the lives of our citizens.
පුරවැසියාගේ ජීවිත ආරක්ෂා කරන්න කොහොමද කියලා.
We'll be back with more news on the other side of this short commercial break. Stay tuned.
Does your business belong to one of these marketing communication industries? The Market Research Society of Sri Lanka invites you to join a Marcom initiative to estimate the total value of the industry with the aim of engaging the government. WhatsApp 076 887 0757 to receive the registration link.
Third episode of the webinar titled Post-COVID-19, The New Normal. Eminent panelists including Keith Moser, Chief Operating Officer and Managing Director at Virtusa, Jeevan Yanam, Co-Founder Hatch, Founder Director Orion City, Lahiru Patmalal, Founder of Takas.lk, and Chandra Jayaratna, former Chairman of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. Moderated by Nero Cook, Group Director, the Capital Maharaja Organization Limited. On Sunday, the 3rd of May at 6 p.m. on TV1.
Welcome back to the news. The Criminal Investigations Department recently examined 2 locations connected to individuals involved in the April 21st attacks.
A hidden weapons cache was discovered in a farm in Topur, Trincomalee. This location was examined by the CID on the 24th of this month. We cannot divulge information on the suspects taken into custody. This area has been identified as one where some sort of training camp was maintained. Several weapons were found at this location. Information came to light regarding an organization that was functioning in Putlam. The individual known as Zaharan had preached at this location.
Moving on to some international news now. Bollywood and Hollywood actor Irfan Khan, known internationally for roles in Slumdog Millionaire and Jurassic World, passed away at the age of 53 today. Stuntman and actor Alexander Fernando passed away today while receiving treatment at the National Hospital in Colombo, making it a very sad day for the Sri Lankan film industry. A celebrated wrestler, Alexander Fernando, was 80 years old at the time of his demise. He had acted in 120 Sinhala language movies and 6 Tamil language movies and in 1 English movie as well. Moving on to some news that comes just in. It has been confirmed that curfew, an island-wide curfew, will be imposed tomorrow at 8 p.m. Now, this curfew will continue to be in effect until 5 a.m. on Monday, the 4th of May. Once again, in some news just in, an island-wide curfew will be imposed at 8 p.m. tomorrow, and it will last until Monday, the 4th of May at 5 a.m. when it will be lifted again. Moving on, in more local news, while politicians expressed their ideas and opinions each day, there is another segment of Sri Lanka who face a plethora of challenges with each passing day. To them, surviving another day is the challenge.
What can I say of life? I am wondering when I will die. My daughter has no food. We will die of hunger. I grew many crops: brinjals, cabbage, beans, and onions. I'd like to continue that, but I can't anymore.
Sri Lankans being treated for non-communicable diseases were suffering long before the onset of COVID-19 in the country. Curfew and other measures imposed island-wide has hindered their ability to attend clinics to receive treatment. In excess of 3,000 people suffer from kidney-related diseases in the Matale district. Such patients reside in villages including Bambaragahawatta, Helambagahawatta, Maragamuwa, Oplagama, Senagama and Galgoda surrounding Naula. Our correspondents reported these patients who attend medical clinics at the Polonnaruwa, Kandy, Dambulla and Mahayangane hospitals are currently facing severe inconveniences due to COVID-19. They have even been overlooked by the program which was initiated to deliver medicine to patients. Obstacles pertaining to transport and economic difficulties are only an iota of challenges these people must overcome. Compounding this tragedy is the fact that while in some households the parents are still alive, their children are no more as they have fallen prey to kidney-related diseases. Although area residents believe the source of kidney diseases plaguing the area is the water they consume, our correspondent notes a comprehensive investigation has not been carried out to clarify the claim.
A tense situation arose between a group of people and wildlife officials in Trincomalee today. The tensions ensued after a group of people who were transporting sand from the Kandalkadu Reserve in Kinya, Trincomalee, were arrested.
With the decision taken by the government to let sand be transported to anywhere in the country, sand was transported to many areas in the island from the Kandalkadu Forest Reserve. Although the transportation of sand was halted during the curfew, it was recommenced once the curfew was lifted. The wildlife officers in Trincomalee had gone to the area to inform a group of people who were attempting to transport sand that it cannot be done because the permits have not been renewed. A tense situation arose when the officers took the revenue licenses of the drivers into their custody. They are asking us to renew our sand permits, but we have a question to ask the government. If the government officers are not open to renew them, how can we renew our permits? What law in Sri Lanka says that they can ask for our vehicle insurance and revenue licenses? It is only the police who can do that. The police can issue a temporary license. Where are our documents? Amidst the heated situation, the wildlife officers sought the assistance of the Sri Lanka Navy to leave the location. But the group transporting the sand did not allow the officers to leave the location. According to our correspondent, the police officers attached to the Kinya police station were instructed to drive away from the location after returning all the documents that were taken from the sand transporters. We came to work on the 16th. Of the 33 sand mining operations, only 3 have applied for permit extensions. The person who was at the forefront is from Tambalagamuwa. He does not have a permit to mine sand there. They are illegally transporting sand without a permit.
An illicit liquor brewery in Vishwamadu Mulathi was raided today. A notable feature of this raid is that it stemmed from the collective action of area residents. The consumption of illicit liquor has increased here and it has become a major problem. Domestic issues have increased as a result of this. Since informing the police did not yield a result, the illicit brewery was raided by area residents with the support of the Gram Niladhari. Those maintaining the illicit brewery had fled a short while before the raid. Our correspondent noted that 5 barrels of illicit liquor were discovered and destroyed by the residents. Former opposition leader Sajith Premadasa spoke today on the plight of Sri Lankan workers stranded overseas.
The main source of foreign exchange to our country are the remittances sent by our workers overseas. Whilst they have been an immense strength to the country, today, as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, hundreds of thousands of Sri Lankan workers are destitute and stranded overseas. I believe that the government should be doing much more to ensure their welfare. The title of national heroes is given to these workers at election times when their votes are needed. It is a matter of urgency now that the government should directly intervene to establish a separate program to ensure the welfare of these hundreds of thousands of Sri Lankans who are stranded on the streets of foreign countries. I propose to the government that a separate task force should be established to provide for the welfare, health, safety and security of Sri Lankan workers overseas. I propose that an individual level survey should be conducted to ascertain their needs, and the government must intervene directly to meet their requirements.
රජයට මැදිහත් වන්නයි කියලා මම මේ අවස්ථාවේ යෝජනාවක් කරනවා.
A $62 billion auction of Sri Lanka development bonds was undersubscribed today, with only bids worth $18 million coming in from investors.
The authority invited bids for floating rate arrangements for 6-month, 1-year, 3-month and 3-year maturities with 6-month LIBOR or its successor for US dollar plus margin through competitive bidding and fixed rate arrangement for 6 months, 1 year, 3 months, 3-year and 4-year 9-month maturities, but the bids were received only for the fixed rate arrangement due to the current uncertainty. In March, a similar Sri Lanka development bonds $220 million auction was also undersubscribed and received only bids worth $22 million, while the central bank only accepted $11.93 million.
Sri Lanka has removed the ceiling imposed on wholesale and retail prices on sugar to assist importers as the Sri Lankan rupee depreciated amidst a spike in world market prices.
The Consumer Affairs Authority revised maximum prices imposed in 2018 yesterday. Under the regulations, importers were instructed to sell sugar at 92 rupees a kilo to wholesalers, while the maximum retail price on unpacked sugar stood at 100 rupees and packed sugar at 105 rupees a kilo. Speaking to Newsfirst, a source at the Consumer Affairs Authority said that importers have to pay between 114 rupees and 120 rupees to import a kilo of sugar, and since the ceiling prices are less than that, they will be hesitant to supply stock. According to the central bank data, the Sri Lankan rupee traded at 195.8 rupees against the US dollar today, a tad firmer from its all-time high of 200.47 hit on the 9th of April. According to state-owned Lanka Sugar Company, the country had required 590,171 metric tons of sugar in 2019, of which 90.65% have been imported at a cost of 33.5 billion rupees. The Ministry of Finance, which slapped import restrictions this month, directed commercial banks to facilitate imports of more than 100 products, including sugar, on a credit basis for 3 months. The restrictions, which also included temporary bans on the importation of at least 156 products, were imposed to control foreign outflows from the country. However, these restrictions were relaxed this week as businesses were permitted to resume imports with permission from the Department of Imports and Exports Control.
A large near-Earth asteroid safely passed by our planet today, providing astronomers with an exceptional opportunity to study the 2-kilometer wide object in great detail.
The asteroid, called 1998 OR2, made what scientists called a close approach, although it is still very far away. The asteroid got no closer than about 6.3 million kilometers, passing more than 16 times further away than the Moon. Asteroid 1998 OR2 was discovered by the Near-Earth Asteroid Tracking Program at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in July 1998, and for the past 2 decades, astronomers have tracked it. As a result of understanding its orbital trajectory precisely, NASA confirmed that this asteroid poses no possibility of impact for at least the next 200 years. Its next close approach to Earth will occur in 2079, when it will pass by closer, only about 4 times the lunar distance. Despite this, 1998 OR2 is still categorized as a large, potentially hazardous asteroid because over the course of millennia, very slight changes in that
ඇඳරනීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ජනාධිපති මාධ්‍යංශයේ විශේෂ නිවේදනයක් නිකුත් කර තිබෙනවා. කොළඹ, ගම්පහ, කළුතර සහ පුත්තලම දිස්ත්‍රික්ක හැර සෙසු දිස්ත්‍රික්කවල හෙට අප්‍රේල් 30 බ්‍රහස්පතින්දා රාත්‍රී 8ට යලි පනවනු ලබන ඇඳරනීතිය මැයි 4 සවුන්දා උදෑසන 5 දක්වා ක්‍රියාත්මක පවතින බව තමයි මේ නිවේදනයේ දැක්වෙන්නේ. මේ අනුව මීට පෙර කොළඹ, ගම්පහ, කළුතර, පුත්තලම කියන දිස්ත්‍රික්කවලට සවුන්දා දක්වා ඇඳරනීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කර තිබුණා. මේ අනුව සඳහන් කිරීමට හැකිවන්නේ හෙට රාත්‍රී 8 සිට සඳුදා දක්වා උදෑසන 5 දක්වා මුළු රටටම ඇඳරනීතිය බලපැවැත්වෙන බව. Riaz.
நன்றி வசந்த. கொழும்பு, கம்பஹா, களுத்துறை, புத்தளம் ஆகிய மாவட்டங்கள் தவிர்ந்த ஏனைய மாவட்டங்களுக்கு ஊரடங்கு சட்டம் அமுல்படுத்தப்படும் விதம் தொடர்பில் ஜனாதிபதி ஊடக பிரிவு அறிக்கை ஒன்றை விடுத்துள்ளது. ஏனைய மாவட்டங்களுக்கு ஏப்ரல் 30ஆம் தேதி, அதாவது நாளை இரவு 8 மணிக்கு பிறப்பிக்கப்படுகின்ற ஊரடங்கு சட்டம் மே மாதம் 4ஆம் தேதி அதிகாலை 5 மணி வரை அமலில் இருக்கும் என ஜனாதிபதி ஊடக பிரிவு தெரிவிக்கின்றது. நாட்டின் கொழும்பு, கம்பஹா, களுத்துறை, புத்தளம் ஆகிய மாவட்டங்களை தவிர்ந்த ஏனைய மாவட்டங்களுக்கு நாளை இரவு 8 மணிக்கு பிறப்பிக்கப்படுகின்ற ஊரடங்கு சட்டம் மே மாதம் 4ஆம் தேதி காலை 5 மணி வரை அமலில் இருக்கும் என ஜனாதிபதி ஊடக பிரிவு தெரிவிக்கின்றது. இதேவேளை கொழும்பு, கம்பஹா, களுத்துறை மற்றும் புத்தளம் ஆகிய மாவட்டங்களுக்கு மே மாதம் 4ஆம் தேதி அதிகாலை 5 மணி வரை ஊரடங்கு சட்டம் அமலில் இருக்கும் என ஏற்கனவே அறிவிக்கப்பட்டிருந்தது. ஷாலன்.
Thank you very much, Riaz. The President's Media Division issuing a special communique regarding the curfew that has been imposed in the country states that an island-wide curfew will be imposed at 8 p.m. tomorrow. This curfew will last until 5 a.m. on the 4th of May. Of course, in the districts of Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutara and Puttlam, initially curfew was due to be lifted on the 4th of May at 5 a.m. and this will continue to be the case. However, in the other districts where curfew will be lifted at 5 a.m. tomorrow, it will be imposed back at 8 p.m. on the same day and last until 5 a.m. on the 4th of May. Now moving back to some news from here at home, the PCR test has been a major topic of conversation ever since the COVID-19 outbreak began. What is it and how does it work? News First made inquiries.
The PCR test is the main test used to detect COVID-19 infections in Sri Lanka.
What actually is this PCR testing? What happens when you do a PCR test?
So this abbreviation stands for polymerase chain reaction. All living beings as well as virus, of course it is an infectious particle, they have a genetic material where they actually code for all their living purposes. So we are actually synthetically in the laboratory process, we are actually detecting we call it a genetic sequence, a particular order which is very unique to that particular either infectious organism or even for you also, right? You can be differentiated from your father. Right. So this genetic sequence is highly accurately and highly sensitively, even if there are two small parts, it can be detected by highly multiplying in a synthetic environment in a laboratory.
Right. Doctor, now PCR test kits, we know that several countries have donated some to us. In terms of this PCR, there is the machine that the PCR is done and there is a separate test kit. In your opinion, do we have adequate numbers in the country at the moment?
MRI have seven real-time PCR machines. So I'm afraid I have no insight into others accurate as a figure as such. Right. But it was revealed in a recent meeting, perhaps something there are 50s, but we need to check it. So other centers, of course, they have PCR machines, but again, I'm not quite sure whether it's adequate for that number. But when it comes to PCR kits, we recently received some donations as well as MRI as well as other centers have purchased. But of course, one has to mention that the demand is such that sometimes it's very difficult to cope up with the whatever the balance. But of course, Ministry of Health has a very defined plan for get more kits.
Right, Doctor. Another point is now we are looking at a situation where people are being subject to the PCR test from locations that are identified as high-risk areas, high-risk zones. Now, if I am to ask you, how does one be tested? How is this selection process done? How does one become a testable sort of candidate?
Yes, there is, because there is a scientific process done according to laid down criteria either by an international body as well as our own scientific body, which is mainly is the epidemiology unit of Sri Lanka and the Ministry of Health, and of course it is ably there's actually a team where actually they have laid down, we call testing criteria. So there are several criteria. For instance, if I may give you certain instances where close contacts of a positive patient, and then of course if this is a very condensed area where a positive case was actually acquaintance with 30 minutes kind of this thing, and then of course return is from this thing. So in summary, there is a scientific process where the selection as well as a scientific process of when to take it, how to take it, right, to make the whole process, right, highly sensitive or a highly measurable or a productive effort.
Why is it that every time that we have to sort of wait for the daily update, it's after 10 or 11 p.m. in the night? What happens at night? Why does it come out at night?
Not necessarily, because now hospital samples are actually provided or actually directed to the testing centers perhaps during the daytime, but mainly from bulk, that is from the screening, the community screening, contact screening, and especially from the quarantine people who are about to leave. They come in bulk to the collecting centers, because during the daytime it's actually a strenuous process, a lengthy process. So for us, I can speak for MRI, we do get this bulk sample either in the evening or during after 4 o'clock. So then and there we start, of course other centers also, they start processing it, and then of course while the results are released, the reports are released, it might be during the night time, so maybe perhaps more positives are released. But if I actually were to give you the previous one, there were several instances where during the daytime also there were some positive cases or clusters reported.
Meanwhile, the Government Medical Officers Association points out that testing should be conducted on people selected at random from the community. There are a number of main things that we have to do right now. One of them is to identify all of the patients. As long as the patients are roaming in the community, we are unsafe. There are some people who don't even know that they have been infected by the virus, and there is only one way that they can be detected, and that is by expanding the testing program. The epidemiology unit is now saying that we must conduct at least 68,000 tests per month. That means on average we must conduct 2,500 tests per day. We propose to move into random sample service. We propose for people to be tested at random so that we can identify the patients in the society. The country has been put in danger as a result of this important information not being communicated to the relevant officials. Announce a proper mechanism. What is the testing method that we are using? Are the alternate testing methods to the PCR test suitable for us? We asked for the specific people who are being tested to be announced. They have not been able to even present that properly. The College of Medical Laboratory Science also reiterates the need for random testing. If we go on the assumption that there is no community spread, then when community spread does happen, it will be extremely difficult to carry out contact tracing and identify those who have been exposed and infected. The testing mechanism needs to be freed from this reactive thinking. We must introduce a testing mechanism where we trace the test potential patients as much as possible. We are not carrying out random tests at present, but we believe that we must commence random testing as soon as possible. The PCR testing process cannot be used for random testing. The testing mechanism should be opened up for public accessibility. It needs to go to the villagers across the district borders. The public should be able to access the test within a short distance from where they live.
දුරකින් මේ පරීක්ෂණය කිරීමේ හැකියාව මහජනතාවට ලබා දෙන්නට ඕනේ.
We have gradually increased the number of PCR tests being carried out. A large number have been tested at laboratories. Another laboratory at the Batikalo Teaching Hospital has been added to the network. We need to continue this whilst maintaining a positive situation in the country and in the economy and day-to-day lives of the people. Our intention is not to reduce the number of patients to zero. This cannot be achieved, but we will be able to keep the number of patients at a controllable level if we follow good health habits. But we can assume that this disease will be around for a while.
The Nagitimu Sri Lanka song has taken social media by storm, with Sri Lankans, both young and old, from all walks of life coming together to sing the song and urge all Sri Lankan, as the song says, to rise up to the occasion and face these challenges. We leave you tonight with some footage that were uploaded on social media of various renditions of this song. Thank you very much for watching Primetime News on TV1. I'm Charlene Benedict for the Newsfirst team, of course, along with our interpreter for the night, Brian De Cruz, and not forgetting our producer, Tarusha Kumar Singha. Take care and God bless.
අනාගතයයි අපි හැමෝම අපේ රටට ආදරේ අපි හැමෝම එකට එකතු වෙලා අපේ රට බේරා ගනිමු අඳුරු වලාපත අතරින් අපි නැගිටිමු හෙට දවස වෙනුවෙන්